package, or even in your business, if you're able to receive any of the funding that's available. But how do we now create our own stimulus package, right? Because the government's not always going to be there to save you or to give you that link or that hand up, if you will. So how do you create your own stimulus package in your own business? On the next slide, I just want to share, as we go through and we start talking about how to maximize your investing opportunity, I want you to understand that just from a legal standpoint, this investing and tax information that's contained, or the information that's shared with you, is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Make sure that you consult your tax advisors, your accountant, your financial fiduciary person before you move forward. With that being said, make sure your specific legal or tax situation is taken care of according to the guidelines of your state. Now, with that said, on the next slide, thinking back to the CARES Act, right? The CARES Act is providing us opportunity to help stimulate the economy. We all know, and you're probably like me, you're tired of hearing about the coronavirus, right? Because every place you go, the TV, the podcast, YouTube, everywhere, name it, there is something about the coronavirus or the CARES Act or the stimulus package. But what I want to say to you today is, how do you create your own stimulus package, not today, but for tomorrow? And then also in teaching your children to create their stimulus packages, because we know as women, the buck doesn't stop there. And one of the reasons we wanted to have this courageous conversation today is because oftentimes when it comes to finances and when it comes to talking about money and stimulus packages and things of this nature, oftentimes that's related to a male situation. It's not truly an area in which we've had many female trailblazers. Not to say there are not any, but it's not as prevalent because the money situation has more so been seen as a man's world as opposed to being that from a woman's world. So on the next slide, I want to share with you, what are we talking about today and how are we going to move forward to help maximize the opportunities that we currently have? What are you going to be able to do today as well as tomorrow? What do we do now as well as later in order to ensure that we meet this? So the first thing, guys, we're going to lay the foundation, right? Just like in building a house or any other place, you have to have a solid, strong foundation in order to see, to see that building go up, to see that infrastructure grow up. Okay, the same thing in your finances. So what is it that we're going to do now? That's what we'll be talking about with the first part of this presentation. And then the second part is scaffolding. How do we ensure that the sides of the building are sturdy, can withstand the hurricane, can withstand the depressions, can withstand the recessions, right? If you will, that are potentially coming, because we know they're coming, because what goes up must come down, right? We know that this is a necessary evil. So how do we now scaffold to ensure that we're protecting ourselves in the future as well? And then finally, we're going to go through what the implementation process looks like. How do you now implement with fidelity? And ultimately, that begins with you. So what are some of those things that you can do from a self perspective, right? Because the most important investment you can make is in yourself. Because we know that this space between here and here can be a challenge for many of us, right? Because our greatest enemy can be the inner me. We talk to ourselves, we tell ourselves these different things, right? That can cause us to go astray. So how do we put these pieces together? Have that solid foundation? How do we scaffold? How do we now implement with fidelity to ensure that we can create our own stimulus package moving forward? So moving into that next slide, I talk about who I am really quickly. I'm Lynn Dimmons, America's #1 financial rebound coach. Yeah, I said it, America's #1. And I can help you make your money, keep your money, and grow your money if you want to. But I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an educator, I'm a speaker. So like many of you, I wear many hats. But one of the things that I love to do as well, guys, is to travel. I don't know if you see one of the pictures right there, but at the bottom left of that picture, was one of the trips where I was really excited to be able to go to the Great Wall of China, and actually be able to take a group of educators over there and be able to experience that. There's so many different things that we're able to do in our lives that help to allow us to build those foundations that we need financially. And you wouldn't think, or initially I didn't think it would, but I learned many lessons while there in China that helped me as well on my financial journey. So it's basically a combination of all of these things, guys, to help you make your money, keep your money, and grow your money. So I'm going to share some of those with you today. And on that next slide, I want you to think. You went to the grocery store. You're a grocery shopper, whether this was pre-COVID-19 or during COVID-19, right? We all go to the grocery store, and you go into the grocery store. I don't know about you, but I go in with all the best intentions, right? I go in, I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to make sure I get the fruits and vegetables, and I want all of those lean meats, and I want the correct dairy products. I don't want, I read the labels. I don't want all of that high fructose corn syrup and all those things in the products that I buy, right? And you're going on, you're shopping in the grocery store, and if that's your goal, you're going through and you're doing good until, right? Until you get to the cash register. And at the cash register, you're waiting there in line. And lo and behold, what do you see? To your left, to your right, and just behind you on the backside and
a Hershey milk chocolate bar.
Exactly. You see the candy, you see the magazines, you see, and don't have a little one with you. Don't have a child with you while you're standing in that line. My baby tells me every time, "Ooh, mama, look, right? Can I have?" It doesn't matter. And there's so many different little things you wouldn't even think of are right there at the cash registers, right? And just like when you're on those shopping excursions, those stores are intentional with every single placement that they have. They're intentional with where they place the fruits and vegetables. They're intentional with where they place those chocolate bars, that junk food, or whatever the case may be. They're extremely intentional in that fashion. So now I want you to leave from that grocery shopper scenario and then think about you as a person, you with your money. How are you with your spending? How are you with your saving? How are you with your investing? See, until we have a similar blueprint, right, as those stores have in regards to our finances, we have to be strategic in how we are spending our money and how we are placing our investments and how we are saving our money. See, being as strategic as that grocery store, you better believe Walmart is very intentional in how they sell their products to you. And whether they do that while you are in the grocery store or they're doing it online, Walmart knows how to get you because they've studied you. They've done the research on you as a consumer. But have you done the research on you in regards to your own finances? Do you know how you make your money, how you keep your money, and how you grow your money, right? So in thinking about that, one of the things I want you to think about, and it's prevalent on the next slide. Now, I don't want you to shoot the messenger in this, but I do want you to hear this and understand this. If you are born poor, it's not your mistake, right? By no means you didn't get to choose the family that you in. You didn't get to choose your mom, your dad, that situation where they live. But if you die poor, it's your mistake. And that's from Bill Gates. Bill Gates' net worth is approximately $92.5 billion. And actually, it's gone up from that, from when I actually did the research to pull this together. But think about the decisions that you are making. Think about the people who are in your circle. Think about the circumstances that you deal with on a regular. Now, this is not to belittle the current situation that you're going through. And I understand that everyone has different situations and circumstances that they face. However, how you respond in those times of uncertainty will help you to determine how you are going to rebound, or how you're going to come out, or how you're going to move up, or how you're going to level up, right? Truth be told, the number one thing that I want to share with you, if you look at the next slide, I want to be able to do several things with you. My objective is to introduce to some of these concepts, because some of you haven't had these money conversations. This wasn't something that was normal for the family, right? To have a sit down conversation with you about money and talk about investing and look at the NASDAQ, right? No, that didn't happen in some situations. So this conversation will not only introduce some who have not been introduced, but it's also to inform. Because oftentimes we have been introduced to information. We know that, right? That's what we say. I know that I should be doing this. But in actuality, we're not doing it. And if you know that you should be doing it and you're not doing it, do you truly know it? So the goal today is also to inform. I want to introduce, I want to inform, and I also want to illustrate. Because in illustrating, you give someone the opportunity to not only hear it, but to also see it. And when you see it, that allows your mind to start thinking better. If you conceive something, that means that you have a better opportunity of believing it and then taking the steps to move forward to achieve it, to make it become a realization in your own life. So in this next slide, if you will, I wanted to share the thoughts here. And maybe you agree or disagree with this concept. But the best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. I don't know anyone who disagrees with that statement, right? But this is from Warren Buffett, and his net worth is $81.1 billion, right? So in thinking along those lines, if those like the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates continue to invest in themselves, continue to surround themselves with people who make better investing decisions than they do, and you know Warren Buffett's considered one of the best, right? One of the best, the guru of investing, still surrounds himself with other people. He continues to educate himself in other aspects, right? Like Bitcoin. He's continuing, and he says it freely. I'm continuing to educate myself on Bitcoin because that's not something that I'm that familiar with. So if the billionaires, the gurus are continuing to invest in themselves, then why are you not, right, continuing to invest in yourself with that same ferocious, visibility, right? Why are you not continuing to go in that same fashion? Not saying you're not investing in yourself, because you are, because you're investing the time to actually participate in this series. You're participating in the women who win, right? And when you make that affirmation, something just comes to life in you that says, I am a woman and I will win. But how do you win? You win by investing in yourself. You win by changing the mindsets that are keeping you in that struggling place. So on the next slide, I want you to think through some things with me. Because contrary to popular belief, being poor and being broke don't mean the same thing. And I know for some people that you got to think about that for a moment. Sit there for a moment, let it marinate. It'll hit you in just a second. Because both of them are a lack of money, truth be told. They're both a lack of money. But being poor is a mindset. It's a slave mentality, right? That's crippling many people in the low socioeconomic status, okay? But when we look at it from that perspective, being broke is a temporary condition, right? If you get paid on Friday, guess what? You're not broke. You may be broke on Saturday, right? Because all of the money goes out of your bank account immediately. But being broke is a temporary condition. And until we actually look at it as such, we look at it in a way now that this is not only a problem that I have. Yes, it's a problem to be broke, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity. It's a wake-up call now for you to start thinking strategically about how can I do things differently? What are some of those things that I can now put in place that are going to allow me to move forward? So on the next slide, the number one thing that you need to do in order to move forward, what should you be doing now, is assessing your current situation. What does your current situation look like? Not just the money in your bank account, But you need to look at everything that comprises your net worth. The income that's coming in, the expenses that are going out, what are your assets? What are your liabilities? Okay. And until you have that complete picture in all four of those buckets, it's going to continue to present some significant challenges for you. And on the next slide, if you will, in accessing this information, I wanted to share with you, if you'll click once more, the economic release. Now, this is an actual link to a report from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it was last updated September 2019. So it was not that long ago that this information was pulled. And this is looking at in the U.S. from the average income perspective. The average household in America brings in $6,131 in expenses. I'm sorry, in income, and the expenses are roughly $5,000. Okay, so that doesn't mean everyone. That's just the average. Okay, the average household in America. So what you need to do now is look at where your income lies, where your expenses lies, and then of course the assets and liabilities are blank because that varies for each person. But understanding and knowing that first is what you need to do. Not only in your business should you know this already. See, this is a huge part of your business structure, knowing the net worth, but it's also a huge component for your personal finances. See, it's not much difference in the way that you should be working your business finances as you should be doing in your personal finances. If the bank asks you for a financial statement for your business, you should be saying, yes, bam, I have that available. I can give that to you because all of those things are spelled out. You should also have the same thing for your personal finances, ladies, because that's how you win in your finances. That's how you truly have an understanding of what is needed and get out of or break free from that robbing Peter to pay Paul mentality that many of us may have. So how do you now take this information and utilize it in the best way to move you forward? On the next slide, we talk about how do you get started. So once you examine your current net worth, you also need to think about these things. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 1 year from today? Where do you want to be 5 years from today? And where do you want to be 10 years from today? And there's a reason and a purpose behind looking at it from that standpoint. Oftentimes, the conversations that we've had around finances hasn't been, about next year, 5 years, or 10 years down the road. Most of us are just trying to get through the week or just trying to get to the next day, right? Or the next pay period or whatever that case may be. But in this time, in building this foundation during this time so you can create your own stimulus check. See, this is how you start that process. This is how you get to the point to where you actually see this is my end goal, but now these are the steps that I am going to take to be able to realize that end goal, to be able to have my own stimulus check. So on the next slide, what I wanted to share with you ladies is basically, this is also an additional research report. I'm a member of the National Financial Education Council, and we do surveys of the membership on a regular basis. And what I wanted to share with you today is what's the reality for many people in this. People are cutting back on discretionary spending. 48% of people are cutting back on those spending, right? Because either that's out of necessity or that's just something that they've chosen to do. And out of the people in this particular report that actually said that they were pulling back on discretionary spending, you would say, oh, well, that makes sense because a lot of people have lost their jobs. In actuality, it's not a lot of the people who have lost their jobs. Yes, they had to cut back, but there are also people who have not had any changes in their income who are now being proactive. They are now cutting back because they don't know what the future holds. See, it's a different mindset between the two groups, right? Between the group that thinks of that poor mentality, oh, I got to cut back because I don't have. But then there's also the mindset of, oh, I need to cut back just in case stuff happens, right, in the future. So thinking from that perspective, how do you now position yourself? What are the thoughts that you're having? How are you now protecting, right, that ability for your family to continue to make your money, keep your money, and grow your money? With that said, 44% are now taking those funds because they cut back on those discretionary funds they're spending. They're now taking those funds and boosting their emergency fund. See, you've heard over and over and over, right, that you need an emergency fund. You need that 3 to 6 months or even a 9-month emergency fund. But many of us haven't taken advantage of that. We haven't put ourselves in a position to be able to have those expenses set aside. If you learn nothing from this pandemic, other than, well, of course, wash your hands and cover, wear your mask. But if you learn nothing else, make sure you understand and set yourself up so that you can build that emergency fund. That should be a priority from you. Behind paying yourself first, that should definitely be a priority for you for setting up and boosting that emergency fund. One of the other things that we found, guys, is that 15% of people are investing more money in the stock market. And that is huge for us. And investing more in the stock market, people are learning and taking advantage because we know there are ebbs and flows in everything. Things are going up, things are going down. People are scared, jobs are being cut, places are closing down. Pier 1 Imports just said they're closing down all of their stores. And as soon as they can open up after the pandemic, they're trying to get approval to sell off everything so they can go through bankruptcy, right? So even in spite of hearing these types of stories on a regular, consistent basis, there are still significant opportunities out there for us. So while you're preparing, while you're building those emergency funds, while you're setting up things to get ready, you should also be trying to prepare yourself to invest better in the market. Get the education you need, get the knowledge base that you need to seek out those opportunities, whether they're short-term, intermediate, or long-term investing opportunities. Get a plan so that you can move forward in all of those aspects of your money, making, keeping, and growing. So on the next slide, where do you go from here? You put a plan in place. You have to have a plan in order to ensure that you can move forward. We've all heard, you know what? You plan to fail, then you fail to plan, right? And a lot of people don't understand that in their finances, or they don't want to look at that in their finances. And they don't want to budget, and they don't want to, a lot of people, don't let that be you. You're not that person who does not want to have a budget. You're not of a mindset that only the poor people have a budget. Guess who the greatest budgeters on the planet are? Those billionaires, right? The greatest budgeters on the planet, because they understand and recognize that they need to trace every cent. That's how they become billionaires. But we miss the mark. We miss the mark because once we start making a little bit more money than our expenses, right? Then we think, oh, that poor stuff, that's for poor people doing a budget. That's for poor. No. The more you grow your money, the more of a budget you need to ensure that you continue to grow those funds. But I digress. Like I said, I'm America's #1 financial rebound coach. Yeah, I said it. So moving right along, on the next slide, we're looking at, so you say, Lynn, well, yes, I can invest, but how, right? There are 5 different ways listed here, guys, that you can invest in real estate. Some of them you actually own direct real estate property, a house or land, but some of them you own the rights to. You don't have to actually physically have the property. So how do I now do this? The first one I'll introduce to some of you because you may not be familiar with a REIT, okay? The REIT, the Real Estate Investment Trust. You can find REITs in the stock market that you are able to invest in. It's just like investing in real estate But it's not physically going out and looking at the house and buying the house and renting the home out, right? But you can invest in those opportunities. Simple crowdfunding platforms to invest in real estate. We all know about GoFundMe, right? Facebook made sure we were aware of GoFundMe. We know about Donors Choose and things of that nature. Those are crowdfunding platforms. But as far as investing in real estate, there are also other crowdfunding platforms out there like Fundrise, Fundrise. I love that crowdfunding platform. It allows you to invest in other opportunities. Right now, because I'm invested in Fundrise, I'm investing in properties in Arizona, in Florida. I'm here in Georgia, but we have properties in Texas and South Carolina that we've all crowdfunded together on. Or another one, Tulsa Real Estate Investment Fund, right? The Tulsa Real Estate Fund is another crowdfunding platform. So it behooves us to learn what these things are that are available to us, and how, if we don't have the funds to purchase our own residential real estate or our own commercial real estate, now how do I take my dollars that I do have and put them together with another like-minded individual or group of individuals, right, who can now help me to get to my goals? Or even purchasing raw land. I know some people think, wait a minute, I don't want land because I can't make money off of land right now. But I need you to think about this. Are they making any more land? No, there's no additional land that's going to be made on this earth beyond what's currently here. And there are significant opportunities, if that falls into your lap, to take advantage of purchasing raw land. But understanding those are different opportunities for you to invest in real estate. On the next slide, investing in the stock market. When we talk about investing in stocks, we're looking at many people may have retirement accounts, whether that was in another job before you became an entrepreneur, or after you became an entrepreneur, you had a 401k or a 403b, or now if you're self-employed, you have the SEP or you have an IRA. So you're investing in the stock market if you're contributing to any of those accounts, but do you know what's going on inside of those accounts? Do you know why they've chosen those particular funds to invest in? See, that's the challenge for many of us. We'll just turn our money over all willy-nilly, if you will, right, to someone else to manage, and we don't have an idea or a clue as to the process or what's happening behind the scenes. Guys, nobody cares about your money more than you do, except your children, right? Nobody cares about your money more than you do. So take the opportunity now, invest in yourself so that you can get the education to ensure what's going on. No, there's absolutely nothing wrong with sending your money over to someone else to manage, but there's everything wrong when you turn that money over and you don't know what's going on. You don't have a clue as to what's happening. The other thing I want to share, guys, invest using a trading platform. These trading platforms are readily available to us online. TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, Merrill Edge, opportunities to get in and start investing. But oftentimes that may be a little bit scary for some folks, right? You may be a little bit more scared. You want to do something. The best time to do something, guys, is to just do it while you're scared, right? Do it while you're scared so you can get in there and take advantage of that, right? Take advantage of the emotions that happen in that time as you're learning to invest. Or take it down a step. Maybe you don't want to jump into TD Ameritrade just yet. Jump into investing using an app. There are many apps on your phone that you can use. Robinhood, Stockpile, Webull, Acorns, just to name a few. And I'm giving you those, guys, because I've used all of those before. I've graduated through the process to utilize those. And I want to make sure that you are taking advantage of every opportunity that's available to you.
So Lynn, I want to ask a question on behalf of Cheryl. Sure. She just asked, Cheryl Scales says, hey, and she asked, what do you recommend to get the education via the different trade platforms? Where do you get the education on the different platforms?
Sure.
Robinhood.
Okay. Yes, all of those platforms do have some element of training. Okay. If you log in, for example, to the Stockpile app, in that Stockpile app, they have some introductory investment advice. In TD Ameritrade, they have a demo account. They have, actually, I even take the in TD Ameritrade, their demo account, and I use some of that in the courses that I train people on. So you can use the free platform trainings that some of these accounts open. The apps, they provide some training. The TD Ameritrade, they provide some training, but that's very foundational training. With that being said, I also offer a course called the Investing Blueprint, where I take you through the process to be able to, while those courses tell you what the ins and outs are, they tell you what the definition of things are, they don't actually go through and teach you how to select or what are the things you should be looking for, right? What are those things you should be looking for and when you're deciding to invest in a business or you're deciding to invest in a particular fund? Okay, so inside of the Investing Blueprint is how I go about that, actually training you to look through those pieces. Because in my opinion, Cheryl, and anyone else who's interested, you have to have a goal to make your money, keep your money, and grow your money. And if you'll go over 2 slides for me, please, Jackie, I want to actually go through the process here. You got to have a YIG, a MIG, a WIG, and a DIG. Okay. And you say, now, Lynn, you can click one more time. What is that? A YIG is your yearly investing goal. A MIG is your monthly investing goal. A WIG is your weekly investing goal. And that schedule, set the schedule and take action. Educate yourself to move forward. Make sure that you are set up to move forward to get that everything in place. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, all right. I'm having a problem on the screen. I apologize. But with
That's okay,
that said,
this is good information, though. This is great. I got one other question to ask you on behalf. Can I ask you for Michelle? She
sure,
said,
sure.
what do you recommend? The big issue too, this is going back a little bit. I think it was on another slide where you were talking about, I can't remember. The big issue too is the increase in the cost of living versus the increase in pay. How do you resolve that? I saw butter go up to $7 when it used to be just $3.96. Just an example.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's an important piece. The cost of living does continue to go up. And we know times show, if we go back and we look at gas back in the 80s versus gas, the price of gas today, right? We see inflation happens. What we have to do is get into a mindset and start preparing for that inflation. So how do we now improve our opportunities to now earn more money? Okay, not only earning monies on physical labor, but how do you now earn more money so that you'll be able to support yourself? Because we can't sit back and wait, like I stated earlier, you can't sit back and wait on the government to come through and save you. We cannot expect, think about it, in some states, the minimum wage is still around $6 an hour. Get that. $6 an hour. How do you expect anyone to be able to feed their family, to be able to have transportation, put a roof over their head, and just to meet all of their basic needs at $6 an hour, right? So some of the things that we have to do, and I don't want to make this a political conversation, but in many cases it has to go there, right? We have to be able to understand and recognize that we as a people, and that's everybody because we're all people, we all must get involved. And if we're not involved, we are not at the table. We have to figure out now, how do we have these conversations to ensure that those people who are representing us, right, legislatively, understand and are in there working on our behalf to help change those rules. That's ridiculous for the price of butter to go from $3.99 to $7.
Yes,
That is
ma'am.
that
Preach.
that
Yeah, you
that is
preaching now. Your voice
beyond.
went into a different level. I love it. You preaching. Go ahead.
It's just a completely different level, guys, and it's very important for us to understand and recognize the value behind getting involved. If we don't get involved politically, because a lot of us will push back from that conversation. We'll push back and say, no, you know what? That has nothing to do with me. Oh, all of those people are crooked. That's more reason for us to get in there, to get out and vote, to actually go up to the capitals, right? To actually get involved, attend the town hall meetings, go and talk to your council members, let them know what it is that you need and what you want. We don't get involved as a whole. I think that's one of our greatest challenges. So if we get beyond that, if we can recognize, okay, they are not going to, come and save us. We have to save ourselves. And in saving ourselves, it's not just a one and done. There are so many different factors that play into this, but politically, and then figuring out how you're now going to educate yourself and be able to go out there and implement and start setting these things up, and now teaching our children to also do these things so that they're now set up, and we can continue to create a cycle where we're pulling ourselves out, right, of this underpass, if you will, out of this underrepresentation, out of this mindset that allows us to be of that poor mentality. Yeah, it's a heavy lift, but what we have to do is we all have to take advantage of the opportunity and step in or lean in, right? As they
Right.
say, we all need to lean into the conversation.
This is awesome information, and your message is right on time. It's time to vote now. So if you haven't gotten your absentee ballot or haven't gone to the polls, because early voting has already started here in Georgia, please go and vote. Take somebody with you. And also, if somebody's not registered, go ahead and get them registered now for the next time. So, I don't think we had that message out in our community enough. And not to take away from you, Lynn, but you went that way. So I just had to add in that piece there too. So thank you for bringing all that full circle. But okay, back to your content.
All right, guys. Well, I'm nearing the end, and what I wanted to share with you is that there is an opportunity to work with me. How do I help? If you go over to the next slide, in looking at this, just like the market goes up and down, we have to understand and put ourselves in a situation so that we can now ensure that we're protecting ourselves, not only now, but also later. We must educate ourselves so that we can now not only educating, hear me and hear me well. You can read as many books, go to as many classes as you would like, but if you don't take that first step to actually start doing something, then don't expect anything to change, right? That's the definition of insanity. We can continue to read and read and read. We all went to school. We read and read and read and read. We didn't use all of that information we learned in school, now did we? Just think about the fact that if we had implemented much more of the information that we've learned, whether that was in school or some online webinar or a book we read, just think how much further we would be. And I can relate to that because I know I'm a serial learner. I love learning, right? Because I'm an educator at heart. I love learning, but I also recognize that I've learned a lot of things that I have not put into action. So now during this time too, I'm reflecting on, okay, so what's that next best step for me? How do I now prioritize everything that I have learned and put it into action? So in moving on to the next slide, one of the things I want to share is how do I help? What is the process that I take you through to help support you? Because it all begins with a conversation, and learning your needs and what your financial goals are is very important in moving through this process. And then in number two, understanding your situation. We talked about some of that today. If you don't understand your situation, then there's no way that I am going to be able to understand your situation and provide the assistance that you need. So in that third step, I provide you with the value of professional analysis. I go through and analyze based upon what you've shared with me. We have those courageous conversations, right? those conversations that are going to help us decide what's the best next step. And then after that, I explain and offer recommendations to you. And what those recommendations are, you decide which ones you choose to implement based upon the priorities for you in your life, right? What are the recommendations you choose? And then you start working on that. And then finally, in step 6, is just making sure that you're still on the path. We continue to check in with you moving forward on that path to peace of mind. I call that peace of mind because peace is one of the most important things, the most invaluable thing in my life, right? So, what is that peace that you can now find inside of you for your financial situation as you continue to make your money, keep your money, and grow your money? So, in this investing blueprint on the next slide, I just basically share with you what it looks like inside of my course. And in that course, we talk about the 4-step system to successful investing. What does that look like when you make the decision to decide to choose, right? I want to invest in Nike, right? How do you identify that wonderful business or that stock you want to invest in? The number one thing I want to tell you right now, guys, is look around your house. What have you already bought into? What do you already believe in? Look at the products. Look at the name brands. Just look at your house. What are those things that you have already bought into? And then take that as a starting point. Just make a list. Use that as a starting point. And then you're going to determine in the next stage, how do we determine the money-making potential of that business or that stock? And that's where you use the UCLA method that I'm going to go over with you to help you determine what that is. The next step, guys, is how do you teach your children to do the same, or your grandchildren to do the same, or your nieces to do the same, right? How do you now not only take this information and learn it for yourself, but then teach others? And then and the last part is how you can take these skills that you have now honed and turn it into a profitable course for yourself. How do you now pay it forward? Because it's not just about saving you and your family. It's about saving our community. It's about reaching out beyond your 4 walls, beyond your family, right, center. How do you now pay it forward to help someone else? Because there are people out there that are waiting on you, and they're not going to move until you do. So once you get this information inside of you, how do you now move forward? On the next slide, I wanted to help you in that process just a little, give you a sneak peek into the investing blueprint. So it's the UCLA rules of identifying businesses to invest in, right? So the U, of course, is to understand. And that's why I said, look around your house, because you understand those things. You've already bought into them. You already bought those Nikes for your baby, right? Those Jordans. You know that there's a Jordan release schedule, right? Because not only is it on the news and you see the people lined up outside of the stores, your children more than likely know it too, and they'll come and say, hey, Mom, those shoes are coming out, right? Or whatever the case may be. So what is it that you understand? Not only what is it that you understand, but then how do they compete? What does their competition look like? Are they standing out, right, amongst the competition or not? What does that look like? And then look at their leadership. Do they have a new CEO in place? Or is this the same CEO that's been there for years, right? And their stability and sustainability evident with that particular company. And then you go through the analysis process. What are the projections for that company? What is the board coming together and saying and doing in regards to how they project that that company will perform moving forward? I gave you the example earlier of Pier 1. They're getting ready to go through bankruptcy. See, there's information out there that's readily available to us, and every company that's traded in the markets has to provide that information. They are legally required to provide that information, but oftentimes we don't know where to go look at it or find it. We don't know what a 10K report is, right? Because that's not something we're accustomed to. But ultimately, once you learn what the rules are, then you can take them and implement. On the next slide, I show you what this investing blueprint looks like. I call it the Great Escape. And you'll see the bread and butter of the Great Escape is in the middle. but there are many pieces that surround it on all sides. You see the UCLA method in the center, but then there's also different pieces that you must be aware of as you're moving forward and investing. Whether you're investing in a business or you're investing in the markets, it doesn't matter. How do you now take advantage of that opportunity? What can you do now to prepare, as well as what can you do later as things continue to change and emerge? The choice is yours. So on the next slide, I tell you that time will pass regardless. What are you going to do about it? And finally, on the last slide, guys, I definitely want to help you make your money and keep your money and grow your money if you want to. I'm Lynn Demmons, America's #1 financial rebound coach. Yeah, I said it, America's #1.
Woo! Awesome. Girl, just rock. I'm going to stay quiet because this is so powerful. I need to just have a moment of silence.
Yes.
I'm just playing. No, Jackie, we got a couple of. I think we got some more questions. Kim and Jackie may have some, and I think there's some in the chat. So I'm gonna let the last few minutes go to them.
No, I had no questions in particular. I just want to say that I loved the presentation. I loved your energy, and you #1 right there, #1.
Absolutely.
So
thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome having you on the live. I haven't seen you in a few months now, Lynn, but it's so great to see you again and connect, and for you to just share the information to everyone on the page.
Thank you, and enjoy your family.
Will do.
Jackie, did you have any questions? Okay, so there's one other question. Angela asked, Fundrise asks for a social security number, Lynn, when signing up. Is it safe to share that information online with them?
So that's a great question. I thank you for asking that. What I did with Fundrise, and this is something I always share too in my class, so you guys are getting an insider tip. When I invest with these companies, I've created a different LLC for investing. So I get an EIN number and I invest through that company as opposed to investing as myself. Why? That protects me. When and if something, heaven forbid, anything happens, but they won't be able to touch my investments. Okay, so say someone comes after you legally, they come after you as an individual. If those investments are under an LLC, that's separate. That LLC has its own EIN number, right? So they can't touch that if they come after you as an individual. So there are many rules and regulations out there, guys, things you need to learn to protect yourself, because the wealthy do it all day long. You won't be able to find their names on a lot of things that they own. Yes.
She said, thank you. She'll use her LLC. Yeah.
Yes,
and then Cheryl said, claim it, Lynn. I guess when you said, yeah, I said it. I love it. Yeah, I said it. Yes, you are. That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Lynn, do you have any type of mastermind groups that you do as well?
Yes, we do. We have the Women Who Win as well. Women Invest Now. Yes. It's the Women Invest Now. It's called WIN. Women Invest Now. Nice. It's just an investing group where we meet on a monthly basis to just have these conversations. We talk about different investments that we're dealing with. We talk about if you're interested in something, you're not quite sure. So we come together and we brainstorm through those things and talk about the pros and cons. And if others in the group want to go in sort of crowdfunding, if you will, and invest together, then they use that as an opportunity to pull their funds together and invest in that opportunity. So yes, the WIN, Women Invest Now.
How do you become a part of that?
Sure. Absolutely. So you have to contact me, because before you get into the program, there's a process, because we want to make sure that we are bringing in the best fit persons for the group. So it's not just open to anyone. And then we bring in different individuals from different areas of entrepreneurship. So we don't want to have, too many people from the same area. We want a variety of different thought leaders at the table as we work through this process and as we go through the investing portal. But what we do, if we don't invite you into the WIN group, then we do share information with other women who may be interested in investing so that they can have a conversation, because we limit the number of people who can participate in the mastermind each time.
Gotcha.
That just allows us to be able to have a more courageous conversation in the group and to truly dig down and get into the numbers, if you will.
Nice. So Lynn, one last thing, would you please put your information in the chat so that the guests, the ladies that are watching this now and those who watch it later on can be able to reach out to you if they have questions and want a copy of your presentation or anything like that. They can reach out to you directly.
Absolutely, will do.
Awesome. Yeah, this was phenomenal. And well, who do we have coming next week? Miss Jackie? Is Jackie frozen?
She looks frozen.
Yeah, I think she's frozen. I think she's preparing her model phase for next week. Yes.
That means you can't
So
know.
next week's presentation is going to be actually Miss Jackie and Nina. They're going to be talking about all things beauty. So Jackie has her own chat with doing makeup, and Nina Winston has her hair salon. And so we're going to feature them next week on the Women Who Win. And Lynn, we welcome you back again as well. You brought so much great information. We almost should have probably did you in 2 parts.